Hey guys, welcome to Leah's Love. I am honored and thrilled to be back here with you today. In my last video, I mentioned that I would talk a little bit about the difference between oracle cards and tarot cards, so that's what we're going to do today. But before we get into that, I did want to talk a little bit about what card reading is in general, right? Like, what is this weird thing that people do when they pull these, colorful pieces of paper out and claim that they can tell me my future or what's going to happen to me next or what I should be doing? Like, what is this sorcery or magic, right? So, what card reading is essentially is a divination tool. And what does that mean? It means that it is a way for us to communicate with spirit, essentially. It is a physical thing that we can use that will help us kind of disconnect from our logical thinking minds and connect with our more creative, intuitive minds. And it's a way to receive messages really from the higher realms, from our guardians, our guides, the angels, source energy itself. It's a way to kind of have like a clearer, more concise communication of the messages that frankly are always being delivered to us, but that we're not able to really receive when we're in our, very high frequency, focused logical mindset. So there are tons of divination tools out there. In regards to the card world, there are the two major ones, which are oracle cards and tarot cards. Oracle cards are what I read, and it's a very fluid system. And then there are also tarot cards, and tarot cards are more than likely what you're familiar with. It's what you see on every movie when there's the psychic who's got a turban on and a crystal ball, and she's pulling a card telling the protagonist, oh, horrible things are coming. She's reading the tarot card system. And tarot is a fixed system. Now, what does that mean? One's fixed and one's fluid. So oracle card decks, which are actually older, have existed for millennia. And the way that they're developed is that someone oftentimes who is very skilled and has been practicing divination for a very long time will decide, you know what, I've been using other people's decks for a really long time and I want to create my own. And so they will make their own deck. It can have any amount of cards and it can have any type of drawing and writing on them. So a lot of times the cards will have themes, oracle cards will have themes. Sometimes they're mythical creatures like fairies. Sometimes they're angel cards. Sometimes it's a mix of a whole bunch of different things. Sometimes they're animals. Sometimes they're spirit animals. It just depends on whatever the author of the card's deck wants them to be. So a lot of times with oracle card decks too, because they can be anything, you'll get a little booklet with them that defines what each card is and what it means. So I, for instance, read Colette Baron-Reid's Oracle Wisdom cards. I do that because I find them to be insanely accurate. Also because I learned how to read that deck from Colette Baron-Reid's Oracle School. So it is very kind of unique and special to actually be able to learn how to read cards from the author of the card deck themselves. So it's kind of cool. And I know that the system that I'm reading properly because she intended it and channeled it and then taught me how to read it. Whereas with tarot cards, they're always the same no matter who the author of the deck is. So for instance, I think it's Rider Wright, I think is the name, is the most popular tarot card deck that exists out there. And whether you're reading that specific card deck or you're reading, Bobby Joe's tarot cards, they're always going to be exactly the same. If I pull a death card in either one of those tarot card decks, it means the same thing. If I pull a hermit card in either one of those card decks, it always means the same. Tarot cards also have 78 cards in each deck, and they have to be read in very specific ways, right? So sometimes it's like a Celtic cross, sometimes it's a star. I don't know all the formations because, like I said, again, I don't read tarot, but I know that if you are reading tarot, it has to be done in a very specific way, and the way that the cards are placed completely changes the meaning of things. Another thing about tarot is that they have 2 systems within them, the major and minor arcana. And as I started to say, when you read tarot, like I mentioned, the Death and Hermit cards. If the Death and Hermit cards are read, parallel to each other with the Death on the left and the right, the Hermit on the right, that means one thing. But then if they move positions and one's on top of the other, it means something completely different. So tarot is incredibly complicated, and frankly, I think it just takes a really long time to become a skilled tarot card reader. Whereas with oracle cards, because you're reading with something that's based on the intention of the author and it's like written in plain language in front of you, you know what each card means, and you can ask questions of that deck in a lot more fluid way. So you can do like past, present, future, or you can, say, you can ask the deck, what else do you want to tell me? Or you can, do 5 cards read or whatever. You just have like kind of the world as your option of what to do when you read oracle cards, and so it's just a little bit more user-friendly in my personal opinion. I don't think that one system is better than the other. They both tell you the exact same things. You can get very clear messages from both. The why getting a reading from one deck over the other really just has to do with like how you feel about the difference between the 2 types of card readings. But in terms of what type of information you're going to get from either one of them, they both are extremely useful, and frankly, all that matters is the difference, or the most important thing in a card reading is the person who's reading and you, which I'll touch on in a little bit. So yeah, that's a little bit about the differences between the 2, and another good way to think about them in terms of the fixed fluid aspects of them. Oracle cards are like jazz, right? Like it's kind of free flowing. There's lots of different instruments. It can be a plethora of arrangements of instruments in one song. There's a lot of improv, whereas tarot is more like classical music. Everything has to be played at a specific time, and not that that's not true with jazz, but you get what I'm saying. It's just very strict and rigid. And so, yeah, those are probably the major differences that I wanted to point out. And again, just because somebody's a card reader, they could read one or both systems. Another really interesting thing about cards is that people like love their card decks. Some people have dozens of card decks. I've seen somebody with 100 card decks. For me personally, it's just not my jam. When you are reading cards, you are putting your energy into them, and it is essentially a language that you're reading. Each card is a letter in the alphabet. So for instance, in my oracle card deck that I read consistently, I know that, one specific card is essentially like A for me, right? And I know that when I pull, I know that A sounds different when it's next to a vowel versus when it's next to a consonant. I know how to read it in certain words, but when I add multiple decks into a reading versus my just one specific deck that I'm used to, that changes the language that I'm reading in totality. So I actually find it a little bit more confusing to read multiple decks at one time. I just like to stick to my old faithful, reading my one deck that I have had tremendous results with and tremendous accuracy with. Now, again, that's one of those things, to each his own. You got to do what you feel is right for you. So much of this is about your relationship with spirit and what you feel is right for you and not what other people are telling you. Another thing I wanted to touch base on was the future aspect of card reading. People are like, oh, well, I want to get my cards read because I want to know my future. If someone ever tells you they're reading your cards to tell you your future, no, that is not it. Card reading is not meant to be a future telling tool. It is meant to be a guidepost. I'm going to say it one more time. Card reading is meant to guide you. Anytime someone is telling you that they can tell you what's going to happen, I would take that as a red flag, and largely in part because we have free will. The whole point of us being here on earth and having these journeys is to make choices. And if you're allowing other people and cards to tell you what choices you should be making, you are defeating the purpose of your existence here. And the cards are meant to empower us, not disempower us. So if we're looking to cards or other people to give us our answers, we're taking away our essence. So one red flag about this, if you're getting a card reading, if you come to someone and you say, I want to know a yes or no answer. I want to know the answer to this question, and it's a question that requires a yes or no answer, and they do a reading based on that and give you a yes or no answer, it's probably not a good reading. Because again, that's disempowering you. That's taking away your freedom of choice. What you should be doing, or what the person who is reading the card should be able to translate for you is, okay, you want to know an answer to this situation. Let's ask in this way. And so they'll ask, what will happen if you make X choice? What will happen if you make Z choice? And then that way you're given a fuller spectrum of all of your options, and you're able to make a more educated and more fulfilling choice for yourself. So yeah, just steer clear away from anyone or any type of situation that's telling you that a card reading is about telling your future. Absolutely, it can tell you what's going to happen next, and that's why I say it's like scary and accurate, and absolutely tell you what's going to happen next. But again, what's happening next is based on your choice. So if you get a reading in one moment and it tells you this is going to happen next, but then you make a choice that takes you in a totally different direction, that changes things. So the other thing I wanted to touch on about, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, was the most important aspects to a reading, which is, one, the reader. Anyone who you're getting a card reading from should be someone who you automatically feel like warm and fuzzies from, who you feel is coming to you with an open and giving heart, who's someone who seems like they're genuinely dedicated and like want to be a part of your journey to help you. If you're feeling kind of weird energy between yourself and the person who's reading your cards, just don't do it. It's not going to be a useful time. It's not going to be a useful time for either of you, to be frank. Because the person reading the cards is essentially putting their essence into the reading, and you just won't want, you want someone who's clear and who's doing it in a loving way. And then lastly, the most important aspect to a reading is you, because it's your reading and it's about you. So it's really important that you come to a reading, again, with a clear and open heart and mind. And it also is super important that you come to a reading without the intention of being told what to do, rather being guided to what to do. That you're coming without hidden motive. So that's just a little bit about card readings and the difference between the different kinds. If you're interested in reading cards, I would highly, highly recommend it. It's really cool and crazy empowering to be able to learn how to do this on your own so that you don't have to rely on other people to guide you. I'm happy to offer resources if people are interested, but I didn't want to put things out carte blanche because I want to encourage people to do their own research. There are tons of things that you can find that are online that are free, that it's like an introductory to things. And if for whatever reason you find that things are overcomplicated, because they can be, please just comment below. Let me know. I'm happy to offer my guidance and my 2 cents in what I think of a course or an option of learning about card reading. And if you have any thoughts or feelings about what I discussed, please share below. I want to hear what you guys are thinking and if this is helpful or other things you might want to learn about. So anyhow, I will be back soon to give a card reading to you all for the week on things that we should focus on. And I hope everyone has a beautiful rest of the day. Bye.